Since August 2021, every month a new illustration has been released in the magazine Saikyo Jump by a different artist redrawing one of Akira Toriyama's classic Dragon Ball manga covers. This is the basis for the Dragon Ball Super Gallery collaboration, a project to commemorate and celebrate Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary. Dragon Ball really needs little introduction. It's a classic Shonen Jump manga from the 1980s, which cemented Akira Toriyama in manga history after his first success with Dr. Slump. It was a major factor in making Weekly Shonen Jump the top manga magazine for a significant period of the 80s and 90s. It inspired countless other creators in and outside the manga sphere, which includes those both in Japan and overseas. You will seldom find a fan of anime or manga who hasn't heard of it, and even those who don't read any manga will likely have heard of it through word of mouth. Dragon Ball has had an immeasurable impact on humanity, and that sounds like I'm blowing it out of proportion, but you rarely will find a piece of media as influential and important as Dragon Ball. Even ignoring its legacy and impact, Dragon Ball is also just a really good manga. It's fun and worth celebrating. So how do we go about that while integrating the idea of Dragon Ball's influence? How about we get some of the biggest and brightest names in the manga industry and have them make a tribute to the series by redrawing every one of Dragon Ball's 42 covers? It's a very fun and simple idea, but I do like the fact that a vast majority of mangaka who participated in this collaboration would have been inspired by Toriyama or would have seen him as their senior. It's also a full circle sort of moment, where Toriyama has impacted the manga industry and tons of individual artists, and now they're drawing directly for the very person who may have inspired them. It's a heartwarming loop of creative gratitude. It also means even more in retrospect due to the tragic passing of Toriyama last year in 2024, meaning in a way you can see this as a celebration of the author alongside the series, and potentially a pictorial eulogy. Each art piece also features a little message from each artist too, which do reflect on Toriyama's passing towards the end, but each one combined, whether they were made before or after this event, is a celebration and gift of thanks to an incredibly important person in their profession and an artist everyone greatly admires. I could have simply stated that this was a collab to celebrate Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary, but I feel like it's much more than that beneath the surface. It's a celebration of one of the greatest artists of our time, and through the combined efforts of 42 other artists, it's also a neat showcase of the manga industry, and a bit of a compilation of some of the more popular Shonen Jump artists from the past few decades. I have a feeling that most people will know the bigger names involved here out of the 42 artists. Some might be a bit more obscure though, and thankfully I know my way around Shonen Jump like the back of my hand, and thought it would be fun to talk about each artist, what series they're responsible for, and their potential relationship with Toriyama. As well as this, I want to analyze their art piece and review it, compare it to the original cover, and judge whether or not they stuck to the assignment of reproducing their assigned Dragon Ball cover in their own unique way. This might also give a bit of insight into how each artist creates, but also what they value in Toriyama's art as well. A quick aside before we begin, my analysis of these covers is my own, and you'll likely disagree on some of my opinions since art is very subjective. I don't expect anyone to fully agree for all 42 covers, but criteria-wise when comparing them, I'm looking for covers that are the same in concept. They don't have to be exact replicas, but say I asked you to draw a tree and you drew a car, I probably wouldn't be very impressed. That said, if you draw the tree at a different angle or focused on the leaves, I think that's an interesting take, and it says more about you as an artist. The other major thing I'm looking for here is individuality, a sense of personal style, which all of these authors do have. I want to see their specific take on Dragon Ball and Toriyama's art and characters. And with all that said, hopefully you're on the same page as me, and we can jump into the very first cover. We start with a giant of manga, Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, a more than worthy name to kick things off. Kishimoto is mostly known for Naruto, as previously mentioned, but also has the cancelled Samurai 8 under his belt and is currently working on Boruto as a writer. It's clear that Kishimoto greatly admired Toriyama growing up, reading both Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball, and that he was an artist who went on to inspire him to create Naruto as well. This has been stated in numerous places, including an interview from 2012. It's very clear that he held Toriyama in extremely high regard. The two even collaborated together in 2010, drawing their characters in different outfits, with Naruto riding Shenlong and Goku standing atop Gamabunta. For Kishimoto's quote, he wrote, "Out of all the many characters in Dragon Ball, my favorite is Krillin. As I read, I could really empathize with the guy desperately chasing behind the stronger Goku, who was always running out in front. I could hardly contain my love for chapters where Krillin got to play a major role. Congratulations on Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary." It's a bit of a shame that Kishimoto's assigned cover wouldn't even have a trace of Krillin, with it instead depicting Goku and Oolong riding this really gnarly quad bike sort of machine. The redraw depicts the exact same scene but completely redrawn with a new pose, which is really impressive since it demonstrates great mastery over drawing this machine that likely only exists in Toriyama's mind. The piece is also a bit more action-centric, with the quad bike skidding in a more violent fashion, giving us a nice line of action curving down to the left side. Little elements like Oolong's hat flying off and Goku using his Ninbo to help maintain control of the craft inject a ton of energy into Kishimoto's version. While the characters are on model, from the expressions and line weights, it's also clearly drawn in Kishimoto's style, with it being a bit sharper and angular than usual. Commenting on color might be a bit ill-advised with these due to different scan qualities, but texturally the metal sheen of the quad on Kishimoto's part is a nice touch as well. I think this is a very fun redesign that's very in line with Toriyama's penchant for expressive action, and I think he would be very pleased with how Kishi adapted his vehicle design and pose. From one Shonen Jump legend to another, next we have Tite Kubo's rendition of Volume 27. Kubo, like Kishimoto, is well known mostly for a singular, extremely long-running manga, that being Bleach. They're artists who both shared a similar time frame too, serializing their monstrously long manga side by side for many years. Accompanying Bleach, Kubo is also responsible for Zombie Powder and Burn the Witch, two more Shonen Jump manga, with Burn the Witch being kind of ongoing, with the possibility we'll see it return in the future, if Kubo wants to make any more. Like most of his peers, Kubo looks up to Toriyama. I even found an interview with Kubo talking about how he likes Dragon Ball's villains specifically, and I think it tracks since Kubo's main villains in Bleach are some of its strongest highlights. There's also this rumor that Bleach wouldn't have been serialized without Toriyama's input, but there is, from my knowledge, no evidence of this. I wanted to bring it up though, just in case people try to further spread this rumor in the comments. As for Kubo's author comment, he wrote, "The truth is, I don't know what I ought to write here, so I took a look at the author comment for the original Volume 27, and it said something like, I'm supposed to write about what I've been up to recently, but I've been so busy with the serial that I don't have anything to write about. I know, right, I thought, but at the time it also said something like, I have my editor write the comments in the Jump table of contents, which is a killer move that I would have loved to know about during my own serial. That reminds me once again of how awesome Toriyama sensei is, to think I could have done it just like that. We're only the second manga in, and Kubo's comment may be the best comment of them all. It's very silly and playful, and Toriyama-esque in spirit. He has this dialogue with him that's very meta over creating comments just like this one. The artwork this time is a full redraw, but Kubo has changed the angle and perspective, making it feel more dynamic. And in addition, the shadows, especially on Frieza's face, give it a lot more edge, which I think is appropriate for Kubo. Piccolo in the background also looks ridiculously cool, especially with his flowing scarf/cape. It's a really nice rendition of Toriyama's original drawing that captures Kubo's art style well too, keeping the same vibe and general composition but altering it in the slightest of ways so that it feels wholly unique. I really like this one, and I think Kubo did a great job. On to the next author, and one I think a large amount of people won't know, and that's Osamu Akimoto, who adapted Volume 28. Akimoto is perhaps the oldest artist participating in this collaboration, at least by serialization standards, beginning his most famous series, Kochikame, all the way back in 1976 within Shonen Jump, and it would stay in the magazine for 40 years, ending in 2016. This means Akimoto is a senior of Toriyama, as well as an author who spanned the decades before and after him. Akimoto, despite ending Kochikame after near 2,000 chapters, is still making stuff to this day, having also done a few Western manga like Black Tiger, and now seems to be doing shorter works or providing illustrations. While I'm sure Akimoto did value Toriyama and was inspired by him generally, I think due to the seniority between them and them both serializing gags to begin their career, these two have a bit more of a friendly rapport with each other, Dr. Slump preceding Dragon Ball and running alongside Kochikame at first. An interview with the two of them sees them chat about how they make characters and draw, and the mutual respect they have for one another is apparent. They've also worked together before or made drawings for each other, like Toriyama making an illustration to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Kochikame, or their collaborative mini chapter called This is the Police Station in Front of Dragon Park on Planet Namek, where the protagonist of Kochikame gets transferred to Namek. It's silly, and I'll leave an article on it in the description, as well as any interviews I mention in this video, which mainly come from the website Kanzenshu. But thank you to anybody who's taken the time to write up or collate these interviews for Western readers. In his quote, Akimoto wrote, "In the original, the Turtle Hermit was riding the first Gen Honda monkey, so I had Ryo-san ride tandem on the most active styled monkey, the Monkey RT. I like the machines in Toriyama-san's works, and in Dragon Ball specifically, things like the flying machines and submarines look really cool. On the character side, I like the Turtle Hermit. He's a kooky old lech, but he's actually strong. I admire that. I tried building up my strength in pursuit of him, but I was frustrated in my efforts. Still, I think my age at least is catching up to him, so I ride around with the top down wearing shades." Akimoto's comment specifically comments on the mechanical designs of Toriyama and the particular bike Toriyama drew for Volume 28. I also think it's appropriate that one of the oldest artists as part of the collab is drawing Master Roshi, although perhaps controversially, he doesn't appear in Akimoto's rendition. Instead, we have the main character of Kochikame, Ryotsu, and Hayato Honda riding the bike instead. And let me tell you, trying to figure out who this was with Ryunosuke, with a very small amount of Kochikame translated into English, was a pain. I guess this character is the resident biker character of Kochikame though, and I've got to shout out Manga Crash for the help in sniffing him out. I also want to shout out Crash generally as well, who also wanted to make a video on this subject but realized how much of an undertaking it would be. We're 3 artists in and I'm already 2,500 words in the script, and it goes on to like 16k, it's insane. If you'd like another channel though that talks about manga, Crash's stuff is great, and they even have a retrospective on early Dragon Ball which they made last year, which I highly recommend giving a watch. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Back to Akimoto's rendition of Volume 28, I think it's pretty cheeky, but if anyone gets to draw their own character in place of one of Toriyama's original ones, it would have to be a senior of Toriyama, and Ryotsu is an icon in Japan, so I completely get why he's drawn him in place of Master Roshi. Ryotsu also has a little tail like Goku, and Honda has been outfitted like Master Roshi with his hat and shell, so it's not like no Dragon Ball elements are present. You may also notice the bikes are different, and that's because Akimoto decided to draw the newest model of the Monkey RT, which is quite aptly named for a bike for Dragon Ball standards. So at first glance you might think, this isn't really anything like the original cover except for its general composition, but the reasoning behind these elements being changed makes sense to me, and I think Akimoto included his own character should get a pass for the importance of Kochikame. I think Toriyama would have at least enjoyed Akimoto's rendition as well and had a laugh about it. The 4th entrant in this collab would be Ryuhei Tamura doing Volume 38, who is most known for their delinquent comedy series Beelzebub, which serialized throughout the late 2000s and early 2010s. Tamura has also done a variety of other cancelled manga within Jump, like Hungry Marie and Hardboiled Cop and Dolphin, with them moving outside of Jump to Sunday Gene X to serialize Cosmos, which drops some of the comedy elements of his previous works to concentrate more on sci-fi drama and action. You can currently read that as it's ongoing. Other than Tamura being a fan of Dragon Ball and likely having a great respect for him, I couldn't really find anything about these two interacting, which makes sense since Tamura isn't quite as big as the last few authors we've gone over. For his comment, he wrote, "Congratulations to Dragon Ball on its 40th anniversary. First time I saw Goku's sons, I thought they were so unbelievably cute that I drew them like crazy. I love both Gohan and Goten. Being reminded once again that was where my passion for drawing children came from, I chose to redraw the cover to Volume 38. I am so honored to have gotten the chance to participate in this project." Tamura's rendition of Volume 38 follows Toriyama's closely. It's slightly more vibrant, and I do like how Tamura has changed the dragon's expression to him wanting to eat the little meat buns. It's a very fun change, almost as if this is the next scene in a sequence. The pose change for Goten is nice, although it's a bit hard to tell stylistically how much of Tamura's art style is in this due to the side profile shot. It's a nice rendition overall though, and while it could be a bit more different, I enjoy its vibrancy, and I think Tamura did a good job as well. Next up we have an author everyone knows now and one of the youngest participants of this collab, Tatsuki Fujimoto. Fujimoto being the author of the exceptionally popular Chainsaw Man, as well as his prior series Fire Punch and a handful of great one-shot works, with Look Back even getting an anime film adaptation and plenty of praise for its depiction of the struggles and joys behind making art and manga. I couldn't find anything that places the two authors together, though I do think both are similar in that they help define a generation of new artists, with many mangaka now taking after Fujimoto. For Fujimoto's comment, he wrote, "I'm honored to be able to participate in this project. Dragon Ball was such a part of everyday life that I remember having heard the names of the characters somewhere before ever having read the manga, to the point I memorized them. Before serializing my own manga, I went through the entire series again, and it was really helpful for me to see how putting this sort of dry character in a shonen manga would make it so appealing. I suggest you read Dragon Ball again for yourselves." Fujimoto, growing up in an era far from Dragon Ball's original serialization, has a much different perspective and history with it, as stated through his comment. Dragon Ball is less a series he read week by week and one he heard about the acclaim for afterwards, something people like me and younger fans of the manga might relate to. In this sense, the way Fujimoto mentions Toriyama in his comment is less personal, and there's a focus on Dragon Ball being this pinnacle work that's a must read for any fan of manga or want to be creators of one. The cover adapted this time would be Volume 2, featuring Goku and Bulma on the back of a chocobo-like being. Fujimoto has shifted the perspective and direction the characters are traveling to be more front-facing. I really like Bulma's outstretched legs in this version and the peace sign with the cowboy hat flying off her head. This, as well as the smoke trail, feel very Western to me, and you can feel how the bird's almost galloping along. Stylistically, it's very Fujimoto. The way characters are drawn, eyes, hair, and proportions, and how it's coloured are very different from Toriyama's, and there's more of an adherence to realistic forms, especially in the hair and feather shapes. Colour-wise, it also has this ethereal or dreamlike feel to it, with it being more washed out and orange. That, or you could easily imagine the two being in a very hot and sunny desert setting here. While I don't think Toriyama's designs translate too well to Fujimoto's art style, and I like Toriyama's original pose better here, I think Fujimoto did a great job here at adapting the cover faithfully while clearly representing his own style and changing just enough that it feels like his own piece as well. Koyoharu Gotouge would redesign Volume 32, with them being known for Demon Slayer exclusively. Gotouge is a pretty quiet person, and from what I can tell, they haven't mentioned Dragon Ball or Toriyama much at all. Based on their comment though, they do have a deep respect for Toriyama, and Dragon Ball is beloved by those close to them. In their comment they wrote, "Greetings, this is Gotouge. I really like Bulma, so I'm really happy that I was able to draw her. Thank you very much. My parents, my siblings, and their children all know of and love Dragon Ball. Just the other day they had a Goku figure in their left hand, so I sometimes think about how truly amazing Toriyama sensei is for having made this story that is so timeless and beloved." The redesign for Volume 32 is sadly one of the more lackluster covers, I think. Gotouge's designs for Bulma, Trunks, and Vegeta are very charming, and I like them a lot, especially their expressions and eyes. The family pose overall is very nice too, and maybe ties into their comment expressing Dragon Ball's connection to their family. However, lots of elements from the original cover are absent, mainly the cool hover car and the nice chill scene of Trunks, and Bulma riding along together. I totally get that Gotouge might not have wanted to draw the car or would have found it too difficult to draw it though. It could be a bit better, but as I said, I really do love how Gotouge drew these characters in their art style, so by no means is this a horrible attempt, and thematically the idea of family is still represented, perhaps in a more overt but also more fun way. Kento Shinohara would be next, redesigning Volume 9 and being known for their late 2000s comedy hit in Jump, Sket Dance, the Jump Plus sci-fi adventure Astro Lost in Space, and the currently serializing Witch Watch in Shonen Jump. Shinohara has stated previously that Toriyama has been an inspiration to him, and his comment for the Dragon Ball Super Gallery corroborates this, although it seems it's more so because of Dr. Slump, which makes sense since Shinohara is a pretty gag-focused mangaka. In Shinohara's comment they wrote, Both my art style and comics have been strongly influenced by Dr. Slump, and I just love the sense of traveling through bucolic scenery in early Dragon Ball. I especially like the character Bulma, and I still recall the feeling of excitement as they set off on their journey, riding together on one motorbike. Goku, Bulma, a dragon, and travel. I love the illustration from Volume 9. To think the day would come where I'd be able to take part in a project like this. I want to go back and tell my school-age self, buying color inks and imitating Toriyama-sensei's illustrations. Congratulations on 40 years of Dragon Ball. The elements mentioning travel throughout Dragon Ball are pretty interesting too. Astro Lost in Space is one big spaceship journey, and based on the drawing Shinohara did, his love of young Goku and Bulma really comes through. This is one where the art style is dramatically different, it's much more modern, with a lot more detail, heavier rendering like on the skin, clothes, and the dinosaur-like creature, which is very different. It retains some charm of the original, although I think Toriyama's original drawing is a lot more expressive. It's just hard to beat the pose going on with Bulma clinging onto the tail, and the way the creature looks back. I just love it a ton personally. In comparison, the overall pose is a bit bland, and I would have liked to see something a bit more colourful maybe, especially with how colourful Shinohara's art can be with Witch Watch. Tatsuya Endou is another name that, like Fujimoto, has recently exploded into popularity thanks to their Jump Plus hit Spy X Family. Besides this, Endou has done a bunch of shorter works and a large amount of assistant work, with them helping out on Jump titles since the very early 2000s. They may seem fairly new, but they have actually been involved with Jump for a few decades. In their comment, they wrote, "Dragon Ball is my origin of origins. I first started drawing manga because I admired Toriyama so much. I'd copy his character art, copy whole chapters, and drew a ton of manga that were basically rip-offs of his. I also played Super Butoden like an idiot. I love the colorization and mechanical structures Toriyama employs on his title pages and front pieces, and often have them in mind even now as I work. His fully proportioned and super deformed styles are both so cute, I can't stand it. I'm truly honored to be able to take part in a project like this. Dragon Ball, congratulations on 40 years. Based on their comment, Endou clearly adores Toriyama and has thought about his art a lot, especially in relation to their own. I'm glad Endou got to draw Volume 15 too, after glazing Toriyama's mechanical designs, as their rendition of the Car Goku and Krillin are in, I think is great. Endou has a bit more of a realistic approach to drawing, tightening up the design to look a bit less deformed, while giving it a sleek and aged vibe. It fits the style of Spy X Family and its setting a great deal, I think. I adore the covers for that series too, and I think through the various chair designs they draw in the covers of Spy X Family, you get a sense that Endou is adept at drawing man-made objects as well as depicting material accurately. The sheen of the metal on the car, its tire treads, and adjusted proportions point to this. I also love his adaptation of the characters. They look great in his style, especially Goku's hair, which is sometimes a challenge for some artists. This is a great example of a near one-to-one adaptation that uses an artist's skill set to change and elevate certain elements to make a refreshing alternative version of the original. Hiroshi Shiibashi is likely a name most people will be unfamiliar with their most popular manga being Nura Rise of the Yokai Clan, an older Jump hit from 2008, and since then they've done a bunch more manga, including 2 Shonen Jump cancel titles, which are Illegal Rare and Yui Cameo Lets Loose. For their comment, they wrote, "When I was little, I was the kind of kid that would go to the bookstore and get the latest volume of whichever series I wanted at the moment, not once even thinking about starting from volume 1. This is why the first Dragon Ball comic I ever bought was volume 7, the one with the fight against General Blue. I remember wondering for a while about what might have happened in the previous volumes. When I finally managed to get my hands on volume 6, I excitedly thought to myself, so there were all these super fun battles before, huh? I really liked the battle with Ninja Murasaki, so I wonder what kind of face that kid that was still in the first year of primary school would have made if he heard that he would one day draw the cover for volume 6, the one that contains that battle. I can't really find much on any relationship between the two authors, though Shiibashi sounds very excited to draw this volume, having grown up reading it. This is a very fun adaptation that stands out a lot, with the original being all flat colours and Shiibashi's being heavily rendered and painted. Tonally, we swap these lighter, cooler blues for some deeper red and browns, which changes the vibes a lot. I do feel it's a bit desaturated though, and Goku's face and hair are a little wild but charming in their own way. I have no idea how it was made, but it makes me think of oil paints with some of the brush strokes and how the colours intersect. This one's a very fun example of two illustrations that depict the exact same scene, but couldn't be further apart when you start dissecting them. It's something this collab showcases very well, I think. Mitsutoshi Shimabukuro would be the creator of Sekimatsu leader Den Takeshi as well as Toriko in Shonen Jump, with the very unsuccessful Build King flopping years later. For their comment, they wrote, "When I was in the second year of middle school, I liked the scene in this volume right before Goku and Vegeta started battling, so much that I copied it over and over again. I feel like I was really lucky to be able to catch the Dragon Ball serialization in Jump right when I was smack dab in the middle of its target audience. Congratulations to Dragon Ball on its 40th anniversary." And now onto the cover, volume 19, it's the first I take real umbrage on. Instead of recreating the cover of Goku in an aircraft with some cool graffiti on, we get a moment from the volume itself, chapter 228 to be exact, the very end of the volume, for a fight that spans the next volume. Already it feels like the assignment has been thrown out, but the actual drawing is pretty much a full-on copy, which Shimabukuro mentions doing as a child. I get that they like this moment, but it doesn't even represent that art style either. It's a flat-out copy of Toriyama's. There is no originality here. You don't even get the sense at all that it was this artist who drew this, and it fully lacks the whimsy and fun of Toriyama's artwork, especially on the covers. It really feels like anyone could have made this one, and it is by far, if not the worst cover from this collab, because it feels like it doesn't honor Toriyama in the slightest. It feels like a simple case of, I like this thing, so I'm gonna copy it wholesale without much thought. Yuusei Matsui is next, who is fairly equally known for his 3 hits in Jump, Nogami Nero, Assassination Classroom, and the currently running Elusive Samurai. His comment reads, "Even I, who had no drawing aptitude, am managing to get some understanding of art after keeping at it for all these years. Even with the drawings of people that are so talented as to be almost magical once you understand the way the art was composed, the magic turns into technique, and you can learn it and get even better. However, Toriyama Sense's art is the only one of those techniques I feel I can't quite get a hold of. No matter how many years pass, it still keeps its magical status. It's easy enough to imitate, but its essence will forever remain out of reach. That's the feeling I get once again, as I have the privilege of imitating that image of the ideal manga artist." Matsui's connections to Toriyama remain a bit elusive to me, but his comment is pretty nice, illuminating how special Toriyama is at drawing. Like we just saw with the last cover, plenty of people can imitate Toriyama, but capturing the essence of his art is out of reach. That said, this one isn't a favorite cover of mine. The replacing of Piccolo and Gohan with Koro-sensei like aliens from his series is cute, but it feels a bit uninspired to me. Nothing is really done differently visually. You get a sense of Matsui's brushstrokes and coloring, but not of how well he can actually draw. It's also not that fun as a parody of the cover either to me. Thankfully, next up we have Hirohiko Araki, who is mostly known for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, a series that started in 1987 and continues to this day in Part 9, The JoJo Lands. Historically, I don't think these two have interacted that much, despite occupying the magazine for the majority of their respected runs. Araki's second serialization, Vow, came out just a month before Dragon Ball would, and the two works couldn't be more different. While Toriyama popularized the idea of a simple, kind-hearted protagonist like Goku, with poppy, sleek artwork unlike anyone else at the time, Araki was going for a more horror-based sci-fi series with a lot more grit to it. Eventually, Araki would succeed though, despite the precedent Toriyama set with Dragon Ball, but Jump proved to be a place where both JoJo and Dragon Ball could coexist, despite being so different from one another. Araki's comment reads, "While trying to make a perfect copy, I realized once again, while Toriyama Sensei's art might look like it was drawn on a flat surface in a very simple manner, the truth is that it has an extremely precise sense of three-dimensionality to it, an amazing technique that can convey both flatness and three-dimensionality at the same time. It's a really great artwork, isn't it? I'm extremely honored that I got to draw the cover to volume 33. Araki's comment reminds me a bit of when he spoke about Toriyama's art in his book, Manga in Theory and Practice. Clearly, Araki has a great respect for Toriyama's art, understands that it's very special, making out that it's very flat, yet possesses a sense of three-dimensionality to it, and in his book he remarks that Toriyama is excellent at drawing things in a stylized manner while retaining their basic form and real-world character. He can draw anything in his own way, which is very admirable, and I think Araki is an artist you could say the same thing for as well. This cover isn't Araki's best work though, unfortunately. I think he could have gotten a bit more creative, but clearly it is his own art. You can see this in the way the clothes are drawn, the folds and creases, and the way Araki hatches at certain points, as well as the expressions and line work. Cell looks a bit more like a stand, and Gohan, well, he looks a bit weird to be honest, and I'm not sure how well his design translates into Araki's art style. I do like the cover overall though. Araki clearly drew it, it's different, and it's fun to look at them side by side due to how different both of them look. Kyosuke Usuta would be responsible for adapting Volume 13, with them being known for Pyu Tofuku Jaguar and Sexy Commando Guy, series that have a decent amount of notoriety in Japan, but not really overseas. For this reason, there's not all that much info out there on them, and I don't know much about them having not read their series yet. For their comment, they wrote, "Welp, after considering the fact that I have zero knack for drawing mechanical stuff, as well as pondering how much of my own taste I could get away with incorporating on the sly, I chose this cover illustration. Really for us, Frieza's impact was absolute, so I was glad I got to draw him. When I think of how its appeal hasn't faded in the slightest, even though it's coming up on its 40th anniversary, it just sets me trembling all the more from the bottom of my heart. Congratulations, I mean it." Usuta's comment goes through their thought process of picking out what volume to draw, finding something that would play to their strengths, and it resulted in maybe one of my favourite covers of the collab. Usuta's style is much softer, using a more painted style, letting the brush strokes and colours speak, especially in the background, which features no line work, and when line work is present, it's delicate. The expression swaps also highlight Usuta's penchant for gag manga. I wish I knew a bit more about their work, but based on the art I have seen from them, namely the covers of Jaguar, this soft, silly and dreamlike vibe is there as well. It works really well when applied to Namek, and it makes for one of the more interesting covers from this collaboration for me. Koji Inada is next, illustrating Volume 3, which features Goku and Master Roshi at the Budokai with a few surprise guests. These two are Mom and Chu from Dragon Quest The Adventure of Dai, a stellar Shonen Jump series that ran alongside Dragon Ball in the late 80s and the 90s. They're also known for Beat the Vandal Buster, but the Dragon Quest connection makes them a bit closer to Toriyama, since Toriyama was a big part of Dragon Quest's foundation as a game, with his designs making up for its iconic visuals. Some people also mistakenly contribute Dai's art to Toriyama, perhaps flattering Inada, who while some of his art is a bit similar, namely the monsters, I think draws quite differently. Inada's comment reads, "A celebration of Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary. I redrew the cover of the third volume, The Tenkaichi Budokai Begins. In Dragon Quest The Adventure of Dai, there's also an arc called The Great Martial Arts Tournament of Romos Kingdom. Since they're pretty similar, I took the liberty of adding some characters. Sorry about that. Sweats." The comment Inada left is quite fun and cheeky, and I do like the inclusion of the characters, and it's a nice little gag if you're familiar with both series. I do find the cover a tad bland otherwise, perhaps it's something to do with the colouring or Goku looking not that different. I'm mainly familiar with Inada's older artwork, which I found a bit more charming, although it does make me happy to see Dragon Quest characters here. Definitely go read Dai, by the way, you'll love it if you enjoy Dragon Ball. Next up we have Mikio Akimoto, the artist of Boruto. Other than that, I don't think they've really done much and haven't interacted with Toriyama, although there is an interview with Akimoto revealing that he does look up to Toriyama for influence, although it's more clinically for reference than Akimoto gushing about the series or the art itself. Akimoto's comment reads, "Congratulations to Dragon Ball on its 40th anniversary. I feel nothing but the utmost gratitude to be included in this project. Dragon Ball has kind of been my source of nutrition ever since I was a kid. The cover of Volume 7, which I like so much and had the privilege of being able to choose, has the sense of vigour and poppiness, a stylish ride and also a healthy dose of sexiness. That is to say, it has all the appeal of Dragon Ball crammed into this one picture. The fact that it looks extremely easy to draw is another of its strong points. I will forever be unable to look at it without anything other than admiration." It's unfortunate that Akimoto had to do this cover and also mentions sexiness, and a lot of discourse centers around them over-sexualizing their younger female characters in Boruto. It's more humorous than anything to me, the original cover that is. At least the bike is well drawn here, as well as the general perspective and composition which has been adjusted. I'm not sure I love this though. Maybe it's the way Akimoto colors the facial expressions which look a bit over-detailed, or the over-saturated colors, but it doesn't pop like the original drawing does. Tadatoshi Fujimaki is best known for his 2008 sports hit Kuroko's Basketball, as well as the currently serializing Kill Blue in Shonen Jump. Robotux Laserbeam, a cancelled golf series in Shonen Jump, also exists by him. Based on their comment, Dragon Ball was something they read, enjoyed, and likely inspired them growing up. This is what it says. When I was in elementary school, meaning right in the middle of the Dragon Ball serialization, everyone in my class was reading it. From those simple beginnings where I enjoyed copying the Dragon Ball drawings, to buying Jump every week, to deciding I want to draw my own comics, to submitting my own manuscripts, to working as an assistant, and then to finally having my own serialization. Who would have thought the day would come where I would be able to draw for a project like this? It is truly an honor. Congratulations to Dragon Ball on its 40th anniversary. Fujimaki would handle redrawing Volume 14, which sees Goku riding along a bike, but instead of a one-to-one redraw, we get what happens next, essentially, Goku crashing. It's humorous and I love the idea. I do think the redraw itself is a bit lackluster though, and might not show off Fujimaki's art style fully, although they aren't one to make super detailed art based on Kill Blue's colours and covers, which I'm familiar with. There's something about the colours, general pose and expression which doesn't feel very Goku to me, and the composition with Goku just in the middle with the bike barely visible is a bit bland. I'd expect something a little bit better for this collab, so this isn't one of my favourites, sadly. Akira Amano illustrated Volume 4 of this collab, being known for their Shonen Jump series, Hitman Reborn. They also did character designs for Psycho-Pass and are currently serializing Ron Kamonohashi, Deranged Detective. I couldn't find much linking them to Toriyama, but their comment clearly shows they love Dragon Ball and Goku. It states, "Hello, Akira Amano speaking. More than an unforgettable part of my childhood, Dragon Ball is something I like so much. It seeped into my very being. By being granted this opportunity to draw Goku, I confirmed once again that I really do love this character a lot. Thank you so much." They did a good job at redrawing Toriyama's machine here from a different angle, although it feels very safe to me and doesn't stand out too much. The proportions and material style of the vehicle look good, but Goku feels a tad plain, and I don't really think it looks anything like Amano's art style to me. I also think the original composition and pose were a bit more dynamic. The diagonal perspective was also a lot of fun, which is sadly absent from the redraw, with it being redrawn from a top-down perspective instead. Kentaro Yabuki is known for numerous jump hits from the turn of the millennium to this day. Black Cat, The Art for To Love Ru, and most recently Ayakashi Triangle. Yabuki clearly adores Dragon Ball, with his first step into the manga world being a postcard with a drawing he submitted to Jump for the Dragon Ball Readers Project decades ago. He laments having never met Toriyama in person, although Toriyama did draw an illustration for To Love Ru's 10th anniversary. Yabuki's comment shows how ecstatic he is about Dragon Ball 2, and he's done past illustrations of the series and shared them online, with him having a particular fondness for the android characters of the Cell arc. In his comment he writes, "I first got into comics by looking at Dragon Ball, studying how to split pages into panels, and having fun drawing the adventures of Goku and the gang on my notebook when I was in elementary school. Who would have thought that I would be able to enjoy a new comic with Goku's adventures even in my 40s? And to top it off, that I would be allowed to contribute a drawing of the artificial humans that I like so much to this project. I really want to go back and tell all of this to my younger self. Toriyama-sensei, congratulations on Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary." Yabuki has developed this really heavily rendered and soft style over time that sees his characters positively glisten. I really love the original Volume 31, especially Cell's design and the car crammed with all the androids. It's fun, has a distinct color profile, and blends Toriyama's best elements into one illustration. Yabuki's take is very different, but a welcome one, playing to his unique strengths. We get some very pretty androids, an amazingly rendered car, and a beautiful snowscape surrounding them. It has a really charming, refreshing vibe, which I dig a ton, taking the original drawing and doing something a bit different with it, letting Yabuki's own art style be expressed, which is one of my favorite parts of this collab, seeing each artist's individual take on the covers that merges their creativity with Toriyama's. Hideaki Sorachi is known for Gintama and was set to illustrate Volume 16. Sorachi has stated his admiration for Dragon Ball as well as other projects Toriyama has illustrated for, like Chrono Trigger and Dragon Quest, and he himself has parodied Dragon Ball throughout Gintama. A funny interaction between them I found was Toriyama's daughter being a fan of Gintama, as stated in a small snippet where Toriyama drew Gintoki. For his comment, it reads, When I was a child, I loved the cover to volume 16, but when I tried to copy it, it never came out well, so I asked my father to draw it for me on a big sheet of drawing paper, and I hung it in my bedroom as a poster for the longest time. Time has passed and Dragon Ball is now nearing its 40th anniversary. That brat was such a lousy artist and managed to get some drawing skills, but I still think I'm not quite at the level of that worn down, yellowed out poster. The comment left by Sorachi is really sweet, and it's fitting then that Sorachi would go to illustrate volume 16 with Piccolo and Goku on the cover. It's interesting to see it drawn in his style. The colouring and line work feel very different, but the prose is pretty samey, and side by side I think sadly Sorachi's looks a tad lackluster to me. I do really like his rendition of Goku's hair though. Pazuka Demizu is one of the more modern mangaka who's taken part in this collab, exploding into popular conscience after The Promised Neverland took off. Since then, she has illustrated numerous other shorter manga and is now doing the art for the newest Beyblade manga. In their comment they wrote, "I really like Dende and Kago, so I asked if I could draw the cover of volume 22. Since the events surrounding them turn out quite tragic in the main story, I drew them in a still peaceful Namek happily going out for a ride. I've always wished I could draw machines as skillfully as Toriyama sensei, something I still think nowadays, and I'm sure will continue to do. Congratulations on Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary." Pazuka implementing Dende and Kago onto the cover works very well I think, and suits what they often illustrate, being children in these weird or peaceful scenarios. There's a contrast in that in a lot of their work, Promised Neverland included, to show the beauty and peace amongst the chaos. While Namek isn't that chaotic, I think she still drew this background really well. It's super detailed, the fish eye lens effect is also stellar, giving this illustration a ton of depth, and it really gives you the feeling that all the characters are on a planet since it's so rounded. The car too, beat up, worn and covered in stickers, is a strong suit I feel of Demizu. She may say she isn't as skillful at drawing machines as Toriyama, but I've got her art book and I disagree, with proof enough being right in front of our eyes. The way she drew all the characters too, with their happy expressions, just makes me happy. Next we have Boichi, a mangaka who has never stopped drawing, known for Dr. Stone in Weekly Shonen Jump, Sunken Rock before that, and a whole host of other manga they've illustrated. Their comment reads, "It's an absolute honor to be able to draw a Dragon Ball cover, that's all there is to it." I think it's clear based on how short but sweet his comment is that he admires Toriyama greatly. While very different in their art styles, both have a firm grasp on drawing extremely technical machines and super deformed little gag characters. What you'll see from his rendition of volume 26 is neither though, with him saying fuck it and drawing the cast of the Frieza saga in his own way. It's a slight shame since the original volume is a ton of fun, with a lot of cool elements like Goku riding on the cloud, his sick jacket, and the sprawling world beneath him. There was no lack of effort in Boichi's illustration though, with it being one of the most complexly drawn of the bunch. While I do think some of the characters' facial expressions are a bit odd, it's just how Boichi draws and you can clearly feel his individual art style come through, which I love seeing. Shun Saeki is the artist behind Food Wars as well as Tenmaku Cinema, a cancelled cinema-based Shonen Jump series. They're known for their technical drawings of food and ecchi elements, which aren't really things too synonymous with Dragon Ball. For their comment, they wrote, "It's the ultimate honor to be associated with such a legendary series. The cover of this volume has a very peculiar design, and after pondering about how to recreate it, I decided on a setting where Goku and Bulma come to look for a Dragon Ball and some ruins that just so happen to have objects shaped like the patterns from the original cover. But now I'm wondering if it was maybe a bit forced. Anyway, I gladly drew it and had a lot of fun doing it. Thank you very much." Saeki clearly has some admiration for the series, although I couldn't find much else connecting him to Toriyama. Their rendition of Volume 10 is explained in their comment, and I can see what they attempted, but don't vibe with it too much. Toriyama's original illustration pops out a lot, the colours are a lot of fun, the abstract shapes used make it feel very different from all the other covers too, and I like Bulma's outfit and hairstyle here. Saeki's version just feels a bit too much. The natural elements don't really pop out to me and muddies the original idea. The bike is obscured and Bulma's slight change in pose and positioning loses a lot of the pep Toriyama's had. The painting style just doesn't look good either, the colours have no room to breathe. It does feel like Saeki's art, but unlike the covers or colour pages they usually draw, I think they maybe went a bit too overboard, leading to the final piece feeling less cohesive and more of a mess. Yuki Tabata is the creator of Black Clover and the cancelled Hungry Joker from Weekly Shonen Jump. Tabata's passion for Dragon Ball is very clear and very apparent from their comment, and they've mentioned a similar story in a French interview too. Toriyama has also apparently praised Tabata and Black Clover in the past too, citing it as one modern manga that has caught their attention. For his comment, Tabata wrote, "Dragon Ball was the start of my life in comics, and it will always be my number one. That's what the child in me says. Way back when I was in daycare, I saw Dragon Ball in a copy of Jump my friend had brought in, and I decided that when I grew up, I would be a cartoonist. That's why to me, there could be no higher honor than having the opportunity to participate in a project like this. And Dragon Ball is still stupendously popular. Having actually managed to become a cartoonist, I've been able to appreciate all the more just how amazing Dragon Ball is. Thank you so much." Tabata would illustrate Volume 40 featuring Gotenks. It's pretty much a one-to-one, and I think he made the design really pop. His style, which is pretty angular and sharp, is a good fit for Dragon Ball characters, and it has this innate shonen rawness to it that I really like. To be honest, this is probably one of the not-so-good covers of Dragon Ball originally, with Gotenks' big head and abstract background not really standing out for me, but Tabata made it look pretty darn cool. Kazue Kato isn't a mangaka I actually know all that much about, but they're responsible for the still ongoing Blue Exorcist as well as a handful of other shorter works. For their comment they wrote, "Congratulations to Dragon Ball on its 40th anniversary. Out of all the covers I enjoy, I purposefully picked one that had as many elements as possible, but I also wanted to draw Piccolo and Vegeta. While I was making this homage, I remembered how much I loved copying the artwork when I was a kid, saw how deep an influence it had on the way I draw natural objects and things like knots, and managed to realize once again how much Toriyama sensei's talent became a part of my very being. It was fun. It was such an honor to be able to partake of this opportunity. Thank you so much." Again, like all artists participating, Kato has a fondness for Dragon Ball, with them being among the group that drew a lot of Dragon Ball as children. I like their reasonings for what cover they picked, despite wanting to draw Vegeta and Piccolo, and their rendition of Volume 25 is really nice. It takes the almost exact same illustration, balancing single-toned elements with more rendered clothing, but in a different way. The color profile is more desaturated, but the natural colors and tones of the jungle setting really get to pop here. I think the way Kato drew the characters is pretty cool too, with them adhering to more human-like anatomy. It stood out to me after looking at it a bit closer, and it's a really nice adaptation. And finally we reach Yasuhise Hara, the artist of Kingdom, and boy is this a controversial cover. Their comment reads, "Congratulations on 40 years of Dragon Ball. It's a work I read every week in Jump right from the first chapter, so it's a real honor getting to participate in a special project such as this. It's quite humbling to be doing an arrangement of one of Toriyama Sensei's illustrations, but I also had fun with it while mixing in elements of Kingdom, adding in background soldiers to bring out that likeness even while giving the armor Goku style coloring." Hara clearly likes Dragon Ball and is a fan of having read it from the beginning, but I knew as soon as I saw this one it would be the most disliked and talked about one of them all. The original Volume 34 is Goku on a pretty cool bike, or possibly Gohan. Sometimes it's really hard to tell. But what we got instead was this. I have a lot of problems that go beyond the idea that it doesn't even or barely resembles the original cover. Firstly, it doesn't even look like Yasuhisa Hara even drew this. It doesn't remotely resemble his art to me. The proportions are off, the character and the horse. The pose is very stilted, and I think the character is meant to be Goku, but it's so hard to tell. At first, I thought it might be referencing some historical or Journey to the West story, since it has big ties to China, which Kingdom is also set in and about, but seemingly no. Hara must have decided to just replace different elements, draw Goku like this, armor like this, let's give Goku a polearm for some reason, oh and just replace the bike or sail with a horse, also add an army in the background, until these two drawings are nothing alike. I guess it retains elements of Hara's art, but I think overall this cover is pretty dire. There's some potential here, there's ideas that have clearly been thought through, but the execution of them has not been done well. Shuichi Aso is next, doing Volume 37, who is known for their series The Disastrous Life of Psyche K. Before this, they had a couple of cancelled Jump Gag manga, and post Psyche K, it seems they haven't done too much else. Their comment reads, "My friends used to bring all 42 volumes to our secret base and we'd go around reading them until it got dark outside. Whenever I bought a card-ass booster pack, I'd quickly flip through all the common cards, but then burst into a dance if I got a foiled Gohan card. In Super Butoden, I'd quickly press all the buttons at random and then unexpectedly launch a secret move. I'd line up with my parents under the blistering heat to go and see the Toei Anime Fair. I'd draw Super Trunks on my blackboard in the back of class and get praised by my teacher. If I think back to all my childhood days, the one constant running through all of it is definitely Dragon Ball. Congratulations on its 40th anniversary." It seems Aso hasn't really interacted with Toriyama too much, but it's apparent by their comment that Dragon Ball was a big part of their childhood. It's really sweet. Their redraw of Volume 37 lacks some of the punch and expressiveness from the original, but I do like how well rendered it is. It's a bit weird since I thought a gag manga author would grasp Toriyama's expressiveness a bit better. That sneaker looks really good though. Katsura Hoshino is known as the mangaka of D. Gray Man and was responsible for the adaptation of Volume 36. Their comment reads, "When I was a kid, I really admired Toriyama sensei and drew Trunks and Goku a lot, as well as many manga and illustrations that copied his style. Sensei's line work, while simple, is also very difficult, with both depth and fun, and I had a lot of fun and excitement trying with all my might to emulate it. When I got the opportunity to be part of this project while drawing, I kept telling my child self, 'You're drawing Dragon Ball, and Toriyama sensei is actually going to see it.' I was really excited and terribly nervous, but thank you so much for letting me draw this." Hoshino is clearly excited based on their comment, and I really love their pass at Volume 26, changing the colour profile to be a bit more muted and autumnal. Her expressions are soft and very charming, and I love how warm and wholesome the illustration feels overall. It has the quality of an old photograph, which I think is appropriate considering the nature of this collaboration. Looking back at Dragon Ball's history, featuring numerous artists reminiscing on the impact Toriyama and Dragon Ball has had on their lives. Gege Akutami is another name modern fans of manga will instantly recognize, being the author of Jujutsu Kaisen. Their comment reads, "Whenever I was at the pub that a friend of my father's used to run, the only reason I was able to wait my way through the adults' late hours drinking without so much as a peep was thanks to the fact that they had all the Dragon Ball volumes available to read. To think that 25 years later I would be able to participate in a project like this fills me with such deep emotion that I think it's transcended the concept of deepness at this point." For such a big name in the modern manga landscape, I couldn't find too much connecting these two authors yet again, although their comment shows a unique situation in which they read and enjoyed Dragon Ball, and they clearly do hold the series dear. Their rendition of Volume 41 takes a different spin, opting not to draw all 9 characters, but instead a funnier scene involving Buu fighting Gotenks. This one really sees Akutami's style pop out to you through the facial expressions, colouring style, and the colours used. I think the way Piccolo is depicted here is quite a lot of fun, and I adore the overall line quality Gege has presented here. For once, I think this is one of the covers where I think a one-to-one rendition wouldn't be as cool. Just drawing a 3x3 of 9 characters headshots might be a tad boring, and it might not be a good showcase of an individual artist's art style, so what Gege did here was pretty cool and welcome. Sui Ishida would illustrate Volume 8, known for their work on Tokyo Ghoul as well as the currently serializing Chojin X. Their comment reads, "Not even in my dreams did I ever think I would get to participate in a project like this. What an honor. Even I, who didn't read a lot of manga back in primary school, remember copying drawings of the Kamehameha in my notebook. After becoming a mangaka, I went to exhibitions of Toriyama Sensei's artworks, and even already as an adult, I still got excited by each and every page of his illustrations. I remember being really moved. Congratulations to Dragon Ball on its 40th anniversary." I think Ishida's comment just shows how ubiquitous Dragon Ball is in Japanese society, and it sounds like they garnered a great appreciation of Toriyama's artwork as they grew older. Their rendition of Volume 8 deviates from the original, a really simple but bombastic car-based illustration, to something a lot more emotive. The car is still there and the attack typography, but the bulk of the image is taken up by a side profile of Kid Goku that's really well drawn. The expression is so human here. The rendering of the skin and the clear brushstrokes in the hair add a richness to it. As expected from Sui Ishida, who is this great artist, they have the ability to yank feeling out of their subjects to create something visceral and worth pondering. I love this adaptation a great deal, and like most of my favorites, it's because the adaptation includes such a unique spin that shows off what the artist is truly capable of, drawing the cover in a way nobody else on Earth would. Next we have Yuusei Murata, a favourite artist of many due to their high detailed drawings and amazing output. They've worked in Jump before doing the art for Eyeshield 21, but are most known for their work on their adaptation of One Punch Man. In a sense, they're already a master of adapting other people's work in their own style. Murata has been pretty vocal about loving Toriyama's work, and in the past has stated the way they draw vehicles is inspired by Toriyama. Their quote states, "While obediently following his master's teachings, Goku seeks to win the Tenkaichi Budokai. After training hard, he then enters and wins the tournament, and in so doing ends up defeating Demon King Piccolo, saving the Earth from his designs on world domination. This is the plot of the first half of Dragon Ball, right before the Saiyan arc. Even with just the plot, don't you think the fun of Goku's unassuming nature, being somehow laid back despite being insanely strong, comes right out? He manages to defeat the Demon King who's trying to destroy the world, all without actually breaking the tournament's rules. That's what's so great about him. Since he's so strong, he ends up prioritizing things other people don't. This might be what being above it all is all about, in the end. And this might be the same attitude that characterizes Toriyama Sensei himself, someone who created an international mega hit while famously thinking things like, I want to get this manuscript over with so I can go and build more plastic model kits, or inking his hair black all the time is a pain, so I'm gonna make Super Saiyan have white hair. And this isn't limited to just manga. The person shows through in anything one makes. If you want to make a comic this thrilling, then you first need to be a thrilling person yourself. That's how I see it. Murata's comment is pretty long-winded, but I love the sentiment behind it, examining Toriyama at a more in-depth level, his series, his character, and his success. I'm not sure I would personally call Toriyama thrilling as a person, but he's a very human character, and I think that comes across in Dragon Ball and in Goku. Murata's adaptation of Volume 12 sees an illustration with 3 whole vehicles and not just the original one present. This one really shows off Murata's mastery of art fundamentals, perspective, the volume and dimensions of these vehicles, a clear understanding of how they work, how light would bounce off of them, and the detail different elements should have, like the lights in the red vehicle. That immense eye for detail is then contrasted by how fun and dynamic the drawing is, really embodying the spirit of Dragon Ball. I think the way Murata draws the characters, with Goku especially, is also a lot of fun. They're detailed and in his style, but they still retain the energy of Toriyama's characters. This is a really fun pass at the volume, and a great piece of artwork. Yoshifumi Tozuka is the artist of Undead Unluck, which has very recently ended after a brilliant run in Shonen Jump. They are a comparatively recent and less popular artist, but had the honour of illustrating Volume 21. Their comment reads, I love the tense battle royale vibes of the Frieza arc. I think Dragon Ball's theme of every character is doing whatever they can, the best they can, is something that influenced my own manga. Tozuka's comment is short but sweet, and I think what they've taken as influence from Dragon Ball being more of a character philosophy than anything artistic is pretty interesting. Their rendition of Volume 21 is another comedic one, illustrating events post the original cover. Krillin and Gohan look very expressive here as they fly through Namek, and I really love the backgrounds drawn. I'm not sure Tozuka's art style comes across the best with these two characters, but I see it through the line work, expressions, and the hair. It's a fun adaptation overall. I do really love the original though. I think seeing the characters from behind is a unique perspective and another demonstration of Toriyama's brilliance, being able to draw anything from any angle. If that was also captured by Tozuka, I think that would have been really cool too. Takeshi Obata is one half of the duo behind hit series like Death Note and Bakuman in Jump, but Obata in particular has a long legacy with the magazine, even serializing manga while Dragon Ball was running in the late 80s and 90s. Cyborg Ji-Chan-Ji, Arabian Lamp Lamp, Puppet Master Sakon, they even did the art for Hikaru no Go, another very important work in Jump, and continue to serialize manga even to this day. Perhaps young at the time, they did coexist with Toriyama in the golden age of Jump, and currently I believe Obata stands side by side with Toriyama as one of the greatest mangaka and artists of Shonen Jump. Obata's comment reads, "Congratulations on Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary. I got to redraw the cover to volume 29. As someone who got to grow up with Toriyama sensei's mechanic designs, this is the highest honor. Every time he featured an automobile in his works, it was so intricately detailed and had even more appeal than actual real cars, so I copied them oh so many times. It never came out well, but before I knew it, I grew an appreciation for similar looking cars and it completely defined my preferences. The Volkswagen featured in this cover is also a pretty rare ride. No matter how much I looked, I couldn't find any reference material, so once again, the final product did not come out well. Laughs. I have nothing but the highest respect for Toriyama sensei's insane knowledge of mechanics." Obata's comment really makes sense to me. Them being inspired and interested in the mechanical designs of Toriyama correlates to how well they draw mechanical and everyday objects. From his very first manga, Cyborg G-Chanji, mechanical design was everywhere. It was really impressive for a first-time serialization, actually. The comment further illuminates just how mechanics crazy both Obata and Toriyama are, and it's further evident in Obata's attempt at redrawing volume 29, taking the Volkswagen driven by Gohan and Piccolo and transforming it into a model kit. The detail here is very impressive, from the car's innards to the small tools used by the characters and the tools, runners, and paints surrounding them. It's very indulgent, but also a wonderful tribute to Toriyama, who is fond of model kits too. This one is at the pinnacle of creativity for this collab, depicting the original cover in a unique way by playing to the artist's strengths, in this case illustrating the mechanical and everyday with such precise detail. Obata's line work and painting style really comes across too. His shadows pop, his color choices feel very considered, muted in the right places, light where it needs to be, and darker or more colorful in places of interest. His illustrations of Gohan and Piccolo are also really impressive despite being so obscured and not at the focal point. Their body language and positioning just tell you so much about the scene and what's going on in their heads. This might be my favorite of them all and is an excellent piece from Obata. Naho Oishi is an artist I'm personally unfamiliar with, but one that is intimately tied with Dragon Ball, being someone who still does art for it to this day, and someone who has a storied history with it, evident by their comment. They are the artist for the currently serializing Dragon Ball SD, as well as numerous other Dragon Ball manga projects, and originally drew Dragon Ball Dojinshi before becoming an official artist for the real thing. Some interviews exist with them, some with Toriyama, and it's clear that Toriyama does trust them and admires their passion for Dragon Ball. They seem ecstatic to be involved in drawing this collaboration and of drawing volume 18. Their comment reads, "My first contact with the manga was when I was in kindergarten and I couldn't even read it, given to me by my father in place of a coloring book. Even after becoming an adult, I thankfully continued to be involved with Dragon Ball, so I was able to live my life alongside the larger-than-life Goku, who had become a father, and later a grandfather. It's no exaggeration to say that Dragon Ball has occupied a very, very big presence throughout more than half of my life. No matter how much I try, I will never be able to thank Toriyama sensei enough for allowing me to live my life alongside the Dragon Ball. Thank you so much. I will continue to love Dragon Ball with all my heart from now on too." Oishi's past at volume 18 is much cleaner and crisper than Toriyama's, but due to their work on the official Super Deform series, the characters almost feel like Toriyama drew them. They're very chirpy and appealing, and I love the colors here. The original is zoomed in a lot more, and the interaction of Gohan and his dad at a racing pit stop is really cute. I think that intimacy is lost a bit in Oishi's adaptation, but the overall drawing's cuteness makes up for it. An interesting tidbit for everyone, Formula 1 was really big in the early 90s, with Toriyama being a huge fan of it, and Ayrton Senna specifically, which resulted in some big collaborations between Dragon Ball, Shonen Jump and Ayrton Senna, and the Formula 1 racing team McLaren, and this is likely why this volume cover is the way it is originally. Hiroyuki Asada is the artist behind Tegami Baki, alongside a bunch of other manga and illustration work, and has been a prominent panel judge for manga competitions like the Tezuka Award. Their comment says as much, with them meeting regularly to discuss the competition and generally hang out with Toriyama. This also sadly marks the point where the perception and tone of this collaboration changes. In their comment they write, "I had the privilege of serving for 6 years as a judge for the Tezuka Award, so twice every year I would get to meet Akira Toriyama sensei. exchange opinions, dine together, and hear a lot of delightful stories. Toriyama-san was always easygoing and relaxed, and I loved that about him. The news of his passing came right before my deadline, and having to draw this volume's illustration at this timing was heartbreaking. More than anything, I can't get Toriyama-san to see it. Still, I drew this with a prayer that it might reach him. Thank you for everything. I love Dragon Ball. Asada having to draw this specific cover is pretty heartbreaking. Getting the news while creating it and knowing it won't ever be seen by Toriyama, it just makes me pause. Despite that, what we got is a lovely tribute. Asada's art style is near perfect for this, I think. The way he illustrates is soft and faded. The goodbye in the flower, as well as the way it's drawn overall, makes me think of tattoos. An everlasting reminder, something that might fade with time but will never fully disappear. Toriyama's legacy, Dragon Ball, while I doubt its influence will really wane, it will never truly be forgotten, and neither will Toriyama. There's so much to love about this one. The sparkles that surround Goku, the beautifully rendered wings, Goku's soft expression, or the tattoo he has that says forever. It's a peaceful and lovely way to honor a colleague, a friend, and one of the greatest artists to ever live. Toyotaro is the artist behind Dragon Ball Super, among many other Dragon Ball spin-off titles. Seemingly like Oishi, they also started as a Dragon Ball doujinshi artist before graduating to working on the franchise officially. Due to the nature of drawing Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball's continuation, they were fairly intimately involved with Toriyama. There's interviews between the both of them, but furthermore, Toyotaro is Toriyama's chosen successor. I haven't read Super, and I know people have a tumultuous relationship with it, but I think it's undeniable that Toyotaro loves the series, and that's apparent in his work, comment, and the illustration he drew. Let's read his comment. When it comes to Snow Country, I immediately think of Muscle Tower, so I went with a situation where they're clearly being chased by the ghosts of the Red Ribbon Army. All of Toriyama-sensei's illustrations are already perfectly composed, so I was quite humbled by the experience. Come to think of it, Toriyama-sensei had said right along that out of the illustrations he drew, there were hardly any he really liked. That can't be true when he draws such amazing stuff, I thought. So one time I went ahead and asked him directly. His response was, "People of our generation don't really do stuff like bragging about our own work." Judging from that, I think he probably did have a favorite illustration or two, but that wasn't the sort of thing the creator himself should be going on about. That's how I interpreted it. I remember thinking that was so cool and just like him, and I came to admire him even more than before. Congratulations on 40 years. Now and forever, Dragon Ball will never die. Muscle Tower and that part of the Red Ribbon Army arc is one of my favourite parts of early Dragon Ball, and so is the Buu saga overall, so seeing Toyotaro take the original image featuring Mr. Satan and Buu driving along, and adding in Android 8 and Goku as well as the girl from that arc, along with the ghostly versions of the original enemies coming from the tower, is really fun. Not only is the snowy setting a connection between the two, but Buu and Satan parallel Goku and Android 8 too. Art-wise, Toyotaro and Super look a bit different from the original, but it is also very close to Dragon Ball's art style. If you told me Toriyama drew this, I would probably believe you, since the characters look on model. Maybe their facial expressions are a bit more animated than normal Dragon Ball though. But the mechanics designs are there, the poses, and the composition is strong overall and is really fun. It radiates the energy I associate with Dragon Ball, and I think this is a great adaptation of the original Volume 39. Takehiko Inoue is best known for Slam Dunk in Shonen Jump, as well as Real and Vagabond. Alongside Toriyama in the mid-90s, Slam Dunk and Dragon Ball would push Shonen Jump to its apex, selling its highest number of copies and boosting its circulation to heights we may never see again. While the two shared the stage of Shonen Jump in the 90s, the two hardly met, which is evident by this interview I found between Toriyama and Inoue for Jump's 50th anniversary. It's a nice read, and despite Inoue's often stoic and short comments, he does in fact hold Dragon Ball very dear to himself, saying it was his favourite manga when he was younger, and perhaps still is. Their back and forth in the interview with each other makes them sound like two of a kind as well, which I really liked. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Inoue's comment states, "I was very happy and extremely blessed to have had a series running at the same time in the same magazine as Dragon Ball." Inoue would illustrate volume 17, which sees Goku riding a motorcycle wearing a leather jacket. The original is very colourful. Goku's jacket is really cool, and I love the use of red, yellow and blue, the primary colours. Inoue's depiction is much more realistic, I guess, dialing down the colours, incorporating a tighter and more materialistic gradient to the colouring of the clothes and the bike. The bike and Goku's proportions are more true to life too. Goku looks really cool here. It's a great showcase of Inoue's strength in highly detailed drawings that use the best part of realism and stylization, I think. The patches on Goku's arms are one of the major changes or Easter eggs of this image, which read 03/01/2024, March 1st, 2024, and then thank you, in reference to Toriyama's passing. It's a really nice tribute, and it's a great cover. Yoshihiro Togashi is another huge manga artist and someone who's worked side by side in Jump with Inoue and Toriyama in the early 90s, serializing Yu Yu Hakusho at the same time. Other than this, Togashi has serialized Tendi Showaru Cupid, Level E, and Hunter x Hunter in Jump, with the latter still ongoing. Toriyama means a lot to Togashi, and not just for helping to create Dragon Quest, which he adores. In a 2016 interview, Togashi likens him to a god, someone he wants to get as close as possible to. Togashi's comment reads, "Drawing this piece was like going back to those times, so it was really fun. When I started drawing, I came to my senses and was overcome with emotion, so strong I could almost cry. So I just read Dragon Ball Volume 5, which was right in front of me. Yep, I'm not lonely at all. Toriyama sensei is right here." Togashi's comment reinforces the importance of Toriyama, bringing him back to earlier days and being overcome with emotion after. I get the sense that for all these drawings post Toriyama's passing, it must have been a really big emotional undertaking. I'm glad some can find some kind of comfort through Dragon Ball though. Togashi would draw Volume 5 and all is laid bare here with his previous statement. Gon from Hunter x Hunter, who is clearly inspired by Goku, chases after him on a bike, behind but on the same road. I wouldn't really say it's presumptuous of Togashi to depict this. I think every mangaka or most would probably love to depict themselves on the same path as Toriyama. It's a cute drawing. I'm not sure how much of Togashi's style really comes through though. His coloring does, but I think what's most important about this one is the sentiment it carries. It's a lovely cover. Masanori Morita is another artist that's not as well known in the West as some of the others we've discussed today, but in Japan and as an artist for Jump, he is one of the greats, putting out the incredibly long-running Rokudenashi Blues, which serialized while Dragon Ball was serializing, as well as creating rookies afterwards. Morita's comment reads, "There was once a time when I was battling it out with Dragon Ball for the top spot in the reader surveys. This one week I got 350 votes and thought I was going to win for sure, and then it turned out that Dragon Ball got 700. I turned these feelings of frustration into a cherished memory, and now it's one of my go-to jokes whenever I'm at the bar. It's something I brag about. Toriyama sensei, those days I got to be serialized alongside you were like a shiny gem to me. Thank you so very much. I worked really hard on this illustration. What do you think? I really wish I could have gone out for a leisurely drink with you even just once, and then I could say, do you remember that time when I was battling it out for first place with you, sensei? There was this one week when I got 350 votes and thought, hell yeah, and then it turned out that Dragon Ball..." Morita's comment again, like the few former ones, has a lot of sentimentality to it, this time in the vein of a personal story, one harkening back to the golden age of Jump when Rokudenashi and Dragon Ball fought. The want for these artists for Toriyama to see these illustrations and to just see Toriyama again is powerful. In this case, it feels less due to Toriyama's legacy or him as an artist, but more of him as an old friend wanting to see him again. Morita's adaptation of Volume 24 is great. The original illustration stands out quite a lot to me since a lot of the Dragon Ball covers are pretty happy or in the context of including some machinery the cast will ride and have a fun time with. This one features its cast scowling, a great representation of Toriyama's ability to draw his characters serious faces before they do battle. Morita might be the best fit for this, having a legacy of drawing hot-blooded characters brawling. His distinct style, which incorporates very realistic yet exaggerated facial expressions, really pops here, giving the cast funny yet still serious faces. It feels fun, like an older Roku Tanashi cover of his. It radiates coolness and silliness at the same time and feels very lovingly drawn to me. Also, Krillin has a nose which in a meta context is hilarious and something Morita likely jokingly apologized for after the fact. Kohei Horikoshi is a modern legend of manga, having run the Jump cancellation gauntlet with his series Barrage and Omega Doki Zoo before serializing My Hero Academia, which ended not long ago. Horikoshi, being a newer generation of mangaka, hasn't seemingly interacted with Toriyama other than maybe as a judge for the Tezuka Awards. Hori did leave a Dragon Ball reference in My Hero to honor Toriyama's passing though. Horikoshi's comment reads, "It's an honor to get to be involved with Dragon Ball like this. I've drawn my comics in admiration of Goku's light-hearted, strong and reassuring character. No matter when and where I read from, he's right there, looking cool with a sense of humor. He's a great character. He's the greatest character." Horikoshi's comment shows that he really idolizes Goku, and it'd be fitting that he'd illustrate volume 13, which features Goku atop a car looking cool as heck. Hori's art style is clearly observable here, especially in his face, although I expected a bit more from the colours, which are quite muted. Hori usually has quite vivid artworks, perhaps it looking more like a memory is fitting though. While I do think it lacks the detail and oomph of the original drawing, it's still a really nice illustration, and Goku's shoes here look really cool. Next we have Nobuhiro Watsuki, who is mostly known for his samurai series in Jump, Rurouni Kenshin, as well as having a few other Jump titles like Gunblaze West and Buso Renkin. Watsuki and Toriyama seem to have crossed paths in things like the Tezuka Awards as judges, as their comment mentions. Watsuki states, "It was the first time in more than 30 years since I became a manga artist that I copied Dragon Ball, and I was reminded by the sheer brilliance and power of the perfect, flawless drawing ability and impeccable sense of style, leaving little room for personal designs. Every time we crossed paths during my more than 10 years as a Tezuka Award judge, he'd greet me warmly, saying, 'Watsuki-kun, huh? Long time no see.' With his characteristic smile, 'Thank you for your hard work,' was the final greeting. I sincerely pray for the peaceful repose of Mr. Toriyama's soul." I'm not very familiar with Watsuki's art style, but their rendition of Volume 30 is fairly cut and dry. It's lost the almost faded photograph aesthetic of the original, and instead I find the colours a bit too abrasive, which is ironic considering I've praised other drawings for taking on the more faded photographic style. Some of the expressions don't fit too well either, like Goku's, but I do like how Piccolo and Trunks look. It's a fine adaptation, but doesn't do anything special to elevate the original or do something differently. Masakazu Katsura is another Golden Age Jump author who serialized works around the time Dragon Ball ran, and even before it during Dr. Slump's run, like Wingman and later Video Girl I alongside Dragon Ball. Later they would continue to produce manga for Jump like Shadow Lady and Ease. Katsura and Toriyama are also big friends. Like his comment states, Katsura and Toriyama would have many phone calls with him interrupting Dragon Ball's storyboarding process. In his message regarding Toriyama's passing, he also mentions visiting houses, and maybe it's just me, but the way Katsura refers to Toriyama is very deep. He truly loved him and saw him as a friend first and mangaka second, of course acknowledging Dragon Ball's legacy, importance and his enjoyment of it as well. Both would also work together, referencing each other and even collaborating on works in the mid-2000s like Sachie Chan Gyu and Jia. There's even a nice and really long interview between them talking about working together, which I'll link in the description with the rest of the other interviews. Katsura's comment states, "I am the man that kept getting in the way of Dragon Ball's writing with really dumb phone calls, ones that started late in the night and went on until the wee hours of the morning. I mean, technically I wasn't really getting in the way per se, but midway through our calls I would just casually ask, 'What are you doing?' and would always be really shocked when he answered, 'Oh, I'm doing the storyboards.' He really was amazing. I wonder what kind of brains Toriyama-san had floating up there on that noggin. Dragon Ball was always such a positive, pure, and unbelievably fun manga that it will always forever be a masterpiece." Katsura was given the insane task of redrawing Volume 1 and it certainly looks different. The dragon looks a bit rough, but I love how Goku's drawn and his expression. The colours, notably the highlights hitting the dragon scales in Goku's face, look really nice, and the lack of the box constraining Goku gives it a sense of freedom and finality for me. Katsura generally is known for his illustrations of pretty girls or characters generally that have great depth and blend realistic facial expressions with a unique style, sometimes veering into uncanny valley territory for me. So for him not to just draw Bulma or another lady from Dragon Ball I think is very notable. He was tasked with something very important here, a close friend who got to draw the first cover. It feels appropriate considering their legacy together, and while I feel it's a bit rough here and there, by no means is this bad. Katsura illustrating this volume just feels right, and I think he did a good job. And finally, our last volume, Volume 42, would be illustrated by none other than Eiichiro Oda, creator of One Piece, and the only manga that I'd say truly rivals Dragon Ball in spirit and being the face of Shonen Jump. One Piece, at least to me, is the series Dragon Ball passed the baton down to in being something that could keep Jump as the #1 manga magazine. Oda and Toriyama have interacted a few times, it seems. There's pictures of them working together early on in One Piece's run in 2002, and I found an interview between them from 2011. Oda has clear admiration for Toriyama, calling him a god, but their conversation flows naturally, and it's nice to hear the two's respect for each other in interviews. Oda's comment reads, I bought the first volume of Dragon Ball manga series when I was in elementary school, but I didn't buy the second volume. I always read the chapters through Weekly Shonen Jump magazine, and when the final volume 42 was released, I went to the bookstore and saw it, but I didn't buy it. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to redraw it, and now I wish I could buy this volume while Toriyama-sensei is still alive. Oda's comment is a little awkward but still heartfelt, and his illustration of Volume 42 turned out great. You get a strong sense of his style, Goku's face for one, the big outstretched hand, and I love that Oda enhanced the perspective to give it a bit more life. Oda's line work and colouring feel his own here too, and we get to one of the bigger changes where Boo has been replaced with Toriyama himself. The original text reading thank you goodbye is now just thank you though. Perhaps this is Oda's inability to truly say goodbye, or it's to focus on the thanks portion entirely. Not saying goodbye, since Toriyama will always be with us through his art and what he made. We've finally covered every single volume and entry to this collab now, and I'd be lying if it wasn't a tiring and emotional process to compile and think about all of this, as well as to record it. On one hand, it's a beautiful celebration of Dragon Ball, one of the most iconic pieces of art and media to exist. Gathering numerous talented artists in the industry together to illustrate it also feels like a celebration of the medium, the people who make it, and the history of manga, especially of Jump. On the other hand, this collaboration also presents us with a tribute to Akira Toriyama. A person, an artist acclaimed beyond belief, but still human. The perception of him is different to every artist involved. Some see him as a god, some a fellow mangaka or rival, and others see him as a dear old friend. As humans, we touch people's hearts through day-to-day conversations and interactions, but with art as well. I think it's wonderful how many hearts Akira Toriyama has touched. He really changed the world. Yet he was also a regular guy, someone who missed deadlines, didn't even read that much manga, lived in the countryside divorced from a large part of Jump and its popularity rankings. He was someone who enjoyed his life and just so happened to draw one of the most influential manga of all time. This collaboration initially was meant to celebrate Dragon Ball and Toriyama, but in the end it memorializes him, and it is also, from my perspective, a celebration of humanity and art. Everyone here is interweaved with Dragon Ball and Toriyama, and with each other, and other people. The people who read Dragon Ball, the people who watch this video, there's this permeable feeling I get, this connection that flows through everything. Maybe you don't feel that, but regardless if you're watching in this moment, chances are Dragon Ball's affected you in some way. Maybe you just enjoy it, and I think for anyone to make you smile or to make one day slightly better through something they've made, that's really special. This collaboration celebrates that very idea to me. A lot of other artists could have potentially done a cover for this collab. Shueisha was pulling from their pool of artists, which makes sense considering Dragon Ball ran in Jump. Perhaps more of Toriyama's friends could have been involved, animators or artists, not necessarily manga authors. I think this makes more sense for a tribute though and less a collab, since sadly it wasn't planned as that from the beginning. I also think a few people who illustrated for this collaboration don't really deserve to and should be removed, and instead I'll list off some people who I think would be great replacements for them. Hiroshi Motomiya is a name I'd love to see contribute as one of the original Shonen Jump artists that helped establish the magazine. I'm not sure of his relationship with Jump and Dragon Ball overall, but it would be interesting to see their take on Goku and Dragon Ball as Toriyama's senior. Masumi Kurumada is another older Jump mangaka responsible for Saint Seiya, which ran through Dragon Ball's time. Their art on a Dragon Ball cover would have looked really interesting in my opinion, and I think it's a shame we never got to see it in this collab. Likewise, Tsukasa Hojo, another Golden Age Jump mangaka responsible for City Hunter, is another one I would have loved to see, as well as Yoichi Takahashi responsible for Captain Tsubasa, Yude Tamago for Kinnikuman, and Tetsuya Hara for the art of Fist of the North Star. These mangaka worked side by side for a long time and were important for Jump. They also all have very unique styles too, and it would have been great to see them all involved. Personal picks for me would be Hisashi Eguchi, who serialized Stop Hibari-kun during Dr. Slump's days. They both have very poppy illustrative art styles, and I think an Eguchi cover would have been really cool. I'm surprised Haruichi Furudate of Haikyuu fame didn't do a cover either. I think that adaptation would have been cool as well. Daisuke Ashihara, the artist of World Trigger, I think could have made something interesting. For modern artists, I'd like to see a Shuro Usazaki cover, the artist behind Actage, as well as the new Ichi the Witch. Her pretty and vibrant, almost magical art would have been a joy to see as a Dragon Ball cover. Takeru Hokazono too, if this was done a year or two later, I think would have been allowed to join in as one of Jump's biggest newest successes with Kagurabachi. There are a few artists who I think might have participated, but unfortunately they passed away prior to this collaboration. Uchi Terasawa, maybe as an old school Jump mangaka doing Cobra, their art was always interesting and fantastic. And without a doubt, if they were alive, I think Kazuki Takahashi would have participated in this, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh!, an artist who I think rivaled Toriyama somewhat in the impact of their series to the world at large, and having an art style wholly unique. A cover by them would have been amazing. Let's not end things too sadly though. I think having so much to say about this collab, highlighting so many people and artists, the ways they all influence each other, is very special and joyous. No doubt parts of this video may have made you sad, but please take heart the happiness a lot of authors conveyed in their comments and drawings. If anything, making this video made me realize I'm just happy to be alive and human in this time where we can reflect on so much art that has come out before us, as well as look forward to all the cool stuff artists will make in the future. Thank you Akira Toriyama and to all the artists who made something for this, minus a few unsavory ones. This was a really fun video to make, and I hope you enjoy hearing about all of these artists that Toriyama impacted through Dragon Ball. Since this is a celebration of Akira Toriyama and Dragon Ball, I fully expect people to comment their favourite covers, characters, or scenes from Dragon Ball, or from Toriyama's art generally. I'd love to hear what you think of Toriyama and this collab overall. If you'd like to hear me talk about more manga as well, please check out the channel. I often talk about Shonen Jump and its older manga through my examinations and explorations into Shonen Jump's history, where I've looked at Shonen Jump's entire run year by year from 1968 all the way to 1990 so far, which includes a lot of the artists I've mentioned here today, as well as a look at Toriyama's work in Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball. If you really enjoyed this and would like to support me further in making videos just like this, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, where you can get a cool little doodle that appears at the end of every video at the $3 tier, like the following cool people: Kinocha, Jade, Kaizoku Gairu, Soroquel Zero, Holly the Apothecary, Mayu, It's Fako, Yellowtail, Lay Sloggett, Chris P. Bacon, Cho Henshin, Full Metal, Unquestionable, Weeby Boy, Wurzel, Balent, Cactus, Joni, City Name E, and also AB, Vako Draws, Otaku Gamer X, Deadpan, Shy Monkeys, Jonathan Dragonet, and John Sandfoot at the $1 tier. Thank you all so much for being patrons, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to be kind and take care. Usually that would be the last thing I say in a script, but I have no joke. I've recorded 2 videos today. I have recorded the video for Enigma, which is 40 minutes long. This audio track has just passed 2 hours of talking. So if my voice is scratchy this time, that is why. I have been yapping my ass off all day and my voice really hurts. So I thought I'd include, I guess, a little outtake after the credits this time. But yeah, this was a really fun project. I love you all. I love Dragon Ball. I'm leaving now. Goodbye. Actually, please compensate me monetarily for reading all of this out. Join the Patreon, please.